The doorbell rang in the peaceful house in suburban New York. Tom Cruise stood up from the sofa, the morning paper still in his hand. Night had fallen, and the dim glow of streetlights filtered through the curtains. He glanced at Angelina Jolie, who was washing dishes in the kitchen, their eyes meeting in a quick exchange, as if they were accustomed to this meaningful silence. An unannounced doorbell. And in their world, the unexpected often meant danger. Before Tom could say anything, a small explosion erupted from the front yard. The window shattered, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. Angelina immediately ducked, her hand moving like lightning to pull a dagger hidden under the kitchen counter. A bullet tore through the air, embedding itself in the wall right behind Tom. Without hesitation, he dove toward the window, peeking through a gap in the curtains. The silhouettes of 3 burly men, armed to the teeth, were advancing from the gate. "They know," Angelina whispered, her voice as cold as ice. She tossed the dagger to Tom, who caught it deftly and nodded. They moved in perfect sync, as if 15 years of a quiet life had never dulled their killer instincts. Tom pulled back the living room rug, revealing a secret cellar door. Angelina ran to the corner of the room, opening a closet to retrieve a black duffel bag that had been packed long ago. Continuous gunfire erupted, bullets slamming into the walls and furniture. Tom and Angelina dove into the basement, slamming the steel door shut behind them. In the darkness, they heard heavy footsteps on the floor above. "The garage tunnel," Tom ordered, his voice low but sharp. They both ran down the underground corridor, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Reaching the garage, Angelina quickly flipped open a utility hatch and pulled out another bag filled with weapons and gear. They were no civilians, and their pursuers had picked the wrong target. The garage door slowly opened, revealing the group of gunmen waiting outside. Bullets rained down, the sound of metal hitting the car ringing out harshly. Tom jumped into the driver's seat of a black SUV, while Angelina took the passenger seat, a pistol in her hand. The vehicle roared to life, charging straight out and crashing through the iron fence. But it was just a decoy. As the gunmen focused their attention on the SUV, Tom suddenly swerved, driving another silver sports car from a corner of the garage, smashing through a side gate and speeding away. The pursuers were stunned, unable to react in time. On the streets of New York, neon lights streaked past the car window. Angelina checked the rearview mirror and spotted 2 black SUVs closing in behind them. "They're not giving up," she said, opening the bag to pull out a compact assault rifle. Tom held the steering wheel, his eyes sharp and cold. "They want that thing, but they will never get it." His voice was firm, as if he were talking to himself. The two of them were no ordinary people. 15 years ago, Tom Cruise and Angelina Jolie were the CIA's best agents, codenamed the Deadly Duo. They had undertaken impossible missions, from assassinating high-level targets to stealing top-secret technology. But after a dangerous mission in Paris, they decided to leave it all behind, to live in anonymity, to protect their new family. Now, the past had found them, and no one knew exactly why. The sports car weaved through traffic on a Manhattan avenue. A bullet shattered the rear window, and Angelina returned fire with a precise burst, blowing out the tire of a pursuing vehicle. The SUV flipped over, blocking the path of the other one. Tom hit the gas, steering the car into a narrow alley where the dim light from street lamps cast long shadows. "We need to get somewhere safe," he said, adjusting a hidden navigation device in the dashboard. "It's been a while since we've been on the run like this." Angelina gave a faint smile, but her eyes revealed deep worry. "The children," she said. "They're 2 kids, Emma and Liam. were still at home with the babysitter. If the enemy knew their identities, the children would be the next target. Tom nodded in understanding. The school first, then Madrid. Your mother will know what to do. They stopped the car in a secluded spot near Central Park. Angelina checked her phone, sending an emergency signal to an old contact at the CIA. They'll find us soon, she said. Tom nodded. Taking a small device from the bag and activating a signal jammer, let them try. We're the deadly duo. They don't stand a chance. In a rare moment of silence, their eyes met. Without words, they both knew their peaceful life was over. Their past, as spies had returned, bringing with it the dangers and secrets they thought they had buried. But this was no time for regret. They had to act. For their family. And for themselves. What region are you listening to this story from? And what time is it there? Please leave a comment below to let me know you are safe and sound and fully focused on this story. My dear friend, we will continue shortly. 15 years ago, in a narrow alley in Paris, the distant lights of the Eiffel Tower cast a glow on the old stone walls. Tom Cruise adjusted his tie, his black suit fitting him perfectly, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd at the lavish party in the mansion of Jean Dupont, a notorious European crime lord. Beside him, Angelina Jolie, in a stunning red dress, smiled charmingly. But her hand subtly touched a bracelet hiding a listening device. They were a pair of CIA agents, posing as arms dealers, on a mission to steal a piece of technology capable of controlling global network infrastructure. The party was loud. The sound of jazz music, mingling with the voices of powerful players. Angelina approached Jean Dupont, a tall man with a fake smile. She sprayed a bit of special perfume on her wrist, one containing microparticles that collected fingerprints. As she shook Jean's hand, she skillfully allowed the microparticles to adhere to his skin. A pleasure to meet you, Sire, she said, her voice sweet, but her eyes cold. Tom stood a few steps away, pretending to sip champagne. But a tiny earpiece was receiving signals from CIA headquarters. Fingerprint acquired. The voice from headquarters echoed in his earpiece. Tom gave a slight nod, signaling to Angelina. They left the main hall and slipped into a corridor leading to the basement. Security cameras were disabled by a jamming device hidden in Tom's watch. They found the safe in a sealed room, the blue light of a fingerprint scanner blinking. Angelina carefully peeled the layer of microparticles from her hand and placed it on the scanner. The safe door clicked open, revealing a small, compact device gleaming with a metallic sheen. "This is it," Tom whispered, quickly stashing the device in his pocket. But just then, the alarm blared. Red lights flashed throughout the mansion. Jean Dupont had installed a secondary security system, something the CIA hadn't anticipated. Exfil Angelina shouted, pulling a small pistol hidden under her dress. They burst into the hallway, confronting Jean's security team. A huge man blocked their path, but Tom delivered a spinning kick. Taking him down in an instant, Angelina fired 2 shots, precisely hitting 2 other men in the shoulder, clearing a path. They ran out to the backyard, where a convertible was waiting. Tom jumped into the driver's seat and started the car, while Angelina sat in the back, returning fire with an assault rifle. Jean's henchmen pursued them in black SUVs, their blinding headlights aimed directly at them. The road along the Seine River became a battlefield, the roar of engines and gunfire drowning out the sound of the waves. Angelina threw a smoke grenade, creating a thick fog that allowed them to temporarily shake their pursuers. They sped to a private airport on the outskirts of Paris, where Brad Pitt, an old colleague of Angelina's, had a plane ready. But as they boarded, Angelina unexpectedly pulled a pregnancy test from her bag. She looked at Tom, her eyes a mix of worry and happiness. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Tom was stunned. Then he smiled. "The woman I love is about to create a new life for me to love. I'm all in." His decisive yet warm words moved Angelina deeply. However, their brief joy was cut short. A flight attendant suddenly drew a gun, aiming it at Angelina. "Hand over the device," he ordered. It turned out Jean Dupont had planted his own man on the flight. Tom immediately threw the device to one side. Taking advantage of the man's momentary distraction, he lunged forward, locking the man's arm in an instant, while Angelina disarmed him, avoiding any damage to the plane. A hand-to-hand fight ensued in the cramped space, but their skills were superior. They took down the entire crew, but a stray bullet hit the pilot. The plane spiraled out of control, heading for the Alps. Tom quickly grabbed the only parachute and strapped it onto Angelina. "Save yourself. Save our child," he said, pushing her out of the cabin just before the plane crashed into the mountainside. A massive avalanche came crashing down, burying everything. But Angelina was safe, thanks to the parachute. She landed in a valley, tears streaming down her face as she believed Tom had sacrificed himself. At CIA headquarters, news of the crash spread quickly. Everyone assumed the deadly duo was dead. But Angelina knew Tom was alive. She found him in a small village near Paris, injured, but miraculously alive. They decided to disappear completely, using the crash as a cover to build a new life. Tom secretly hid the device in a place only he knew, just in case danger ever returned. The final scene of the chapter shows their silhouettes fading in the moonlight as they begin their anonymous journey. But the past does not let go easily, and Jean Dupont is still searching for them from his secret lair in Madrid. Spain. The pounding beat of electronic music from a nightclub echoed through the dark alley. Angelina Jolie stood hidden in the shadows, her sharp eyes watching the club's side door. Beside her, Tom Cruise checked a tracking device on his phone, the screen showing a signal from the phone of their daughter, 14-year-old Emma. Just a few hours earlier, Emma had lied about going to a friend's house to do homework. But the tracker led them here. "She's rebelling," Angelina whispered, her voice tinged with concern. Tom smirked, but his eyes were tense. Just like her mother at that age, they had no time to argue. After the attack at their home, they knew the enemy had discovered their identities, and Emma could be a target. They entered the club, blending into the crowd of young people dancing under the flashing lights. In a corner of the room, Emma stood next to a boy, hand in hand, smiling innocently. But her smile vanished when a large man in a leather jacket approached and grabbed her by the shoulder. Angelina immediately darted through the crowd, her hand gripping a dagger hidden in her jacket. "Let her go," she shouted, her voice as sharp as a blade. The man sneered. But before he could react, Tom appeared from behind, locking his arm and slamming his head onto the bar. Screams erupted as the crowd panicked. Another group of henchmen, armed with guns, stormed in through the main entrance. Angelina pushed Emma behind her and delivered a powerful kick to one man's chest, sending him crashing through a glass table. Tom leaped to the second floor, throwing a chair down at the gunman to create chaos. He drew a pistol from his waistband and fired precisely at one man's hand, causing his gun to clatter to the floor. "Get her out of here," he yelled to Angelina. They dragged Emma toward the side exit, but a henchman blocked their path, a gleaming dagger in his hand. Angelina spun, using her own dagger to block her opponent's blade, then landed a punch to his face. Emma was terrified, her eyes wide as she watched her mother fight like an assassin. "Mom? Who are you?" she stammered. Angelina didn't answer, just grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her along. They burst into the alley and jumped into the waiting sports car. Tom floored it, the car screeching as it sped through the crowded New York streets. Behind them, two black SUVs gave chase, their headlights blinding. Angelina opened the window and threw a small explosive device at the pursuing vehicle's tire. The small explosion caused one SUV to flip over, blocking the other's path. But the danger was not over. Inside the car, Emma huddled in the back seat, her eyes filled with confusion. "What are you guys doing? Why are they chasing us?" Tom glanced in the rearview mirror, his voice low. "You'll find out soon. But for now, just trust us." Angelina checked her phone and received an encrypted message from an old CIA contact. "Morgan Freeman." The message was brief. "They know where you are. Jean Dupont is back." Tom tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Jean never gave up. He looked at Angelina, their eyes meeting in a quick exchange. 15 years ago, they had stolen the tech device from Jean Dupont's lair in Paris, but Tom had hidden it in a secret location, unknown to the CIA or anyone else. Now, it was clear that Jean wanted revenge and wanted his property back. The car stopped in an underground parking garage near Times Square. Tom opened the trunk, took out another bag of weapons, and handed Angelina a pistol and a communication device. "We need to get to Madrid. Your mother will help." Angelina nodded, but her eyes showed clear worry. The relationship between her and her mother, Meryl Streep, a former CIA agent, had been fractured for a long time. But now, they had no other choice. Before they could leave, another black car suddenly appeared at the garage entrance. The door opened, and Morgan Freeman stepped out, his grey suit exuding an air of authority. "The killer couple. Long time no see," he said, his voice deep but sharp. Tom frowned. "How did you find us?" Morgan didn't answer right away, simply opening his phone to show them a video, the scene of Emma's capture in the club, recorded by a security camera. "Jean Dupont has contacted the Russians," Morgan said. "He knows you're alive, and he wants that device at any cost." Before Tom could ask more, a bullet hit their tire. From the shadows, Jean's gunman appeared, weapons at the ready. Angelina pushed Emma to the floor of the car, shouting, "Drive." Tom hit the gas, and the car shot out of the parking garage, crashing through the metal barrier. Gunshots rang out from behind, but Morgan suddenly drew his gun, firing back, creating an opportunity for them to escape. In that chaotic moment, Angelina looked at Morgan through the rearview mirror, her eyes full of suspicion. "He knows too much," she whispered. Tom nodded. "Let's get to Madrid first. Then we'll find out who's behind this." The dazzling lights of Times Square flashed past the sports car's window, but inside, the atmosphere was as tense as a drawn bowstring. Tom Cruise gripped the steering wheel, his eyes glued to the rearview mirror, where 3 black SUVs were still in hot pursuit. Angelina Jolie sat beside him, her hand checking the magazine of her handgun, her gaze sharp as ice. In the back seat, Emma clutched her backpack, her face pale, still not understanding why her family was being hunted like criminals. "We don't have the device," Angelina said, her voice full of frustration. "Why won't Jean Dupont let it go?" Tom glanced at her, his eyes holding a mysterious glint. "I kept something. A key." Angelina was stunned. "A key? You hid this from me for 15 years. Tom didn't answer, just hit the gas. The car speeding through an intersection, nearly hitting a cargo truck. Police sirens began to wail in the distance. They sped into Harlem, where the narrow streets were a tangled maze. Tom suddenly turned into an alley, swerving through trash cans and overturned bicycles. A pursuing SUV crashed into a fence, letting out a screech of metal. Angelina opened the window and threw an electromagnetic pulse device. causing the surrounding streetlights and security cameras to flicker and die. "Shook them for now," she said, but her voice was still tense. Tom stopped the car in a vacant lot near the Hudson River. He opened the trunk, took out a small toolkit, and checked the tracking device. "That key? I hid it in Madrid, at your mother's fox hunting estate," he revealed in a low voice. Angelina frowned. "My mother, Meryl Streep. You contacted her without telling me." Tom sighed. "I just wanted to protect you. And the kids?" Emma chimed in from the back seat, her voice trembling. "What are you two talking about? Who are we running from?" Angelina turned around, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You'll understand. But for now, just trust me." She looked at Tom, her eyes signaling him to continue. They needed to get to JFK Airport immediately, where a private jet was waiting to take the family to Madrid. But before he could start the car, a loud explosion erupted. A smoke grenade landed near the car, engulfing it in thick smoke. From within the darkness, the silhouettes of 5 gunmen appeared, assault rifles at the ready. Tom reacted instantly, pushing Emma to the floor, then diving out and rolling to avoid a spray of bullets. Angelina burst out of her door, using the car as cover, firing back repeatedly. One henchman fell, but the others advanced. Coordinating like professional mercenaries, Tom drew a dagger, lunged at one man, locking his arm and stabbing him precisely in the shoulder. Angelina leaped onto the hood of the car, delivering a spinning kick that took down another. Their synergy was like a deadly dance, every move sharp and efficient. But they were outnumbered. A large man grabbed Emma from the back seat, pulling her out of the car. Angelina screamed and charged forward, but was blocked by another man. Tom, realizing the critical situation, threw a flashbang grenade at the group of gunmen. The blinding light and explosion made them stagger. He lunged forward, punched the man holding Emma squarely in the face, freeing the girl. Angelina seized the opportunity, shooting down the remaining 2 and clearing a path. They jumped back into the car, speeding onto the highway toward the airport. Emma was sobbing, clutching her mother tightly. "Mum. Dad." Why Angelina stroked her daughter's hair, her voice softening. "Your father and I used to do dangerous work, but I promise we will be safe." Tom glanced in the mirror, his gaze resolute. "Once we get to Madrid, everything will become clear." On the highway, a truck suddenly cut them off, forcing Tom to slam on the brakes. From the truck, another group of henchmen jumped out, heavy weapons at the ready. Angelina opened her bag, pulled out a small grenade launcher, and fired a shot at the truck's tire. The explosion caused the truck to tip over, blocking the enemy's path. But a helicopter appeared in the sky, its searchlight beaming directly on them. "They're not stopping," Tom muttered, flooring it. The car sped across the Brooklyn Bridge, the lights of New York glittering behind them. Angelina activated a jamming device, causing the helicopter to temporarily lose its signal. They made it to JFK Airport, where Brad Pitt, an old colleague, had our private jet ready. But as they stepped onto the tarmac, Brad appeared with a strange look in his eyes. "You've caused a lot of trouble," he said, his hand resting on the gun hidden in his jacket. Tom frowned. "Whose side are you on?" Brad before Brad could answer, a bullet flew past, grazing Angelina's shoulder. In the distance, Jean Dupont's henchman had caught up. Tom pulled Emma and Angelina behind a cargo container, ready for another fight. They knew that to survive, they had to get to Madrid and confront the secret Tom had kept for 15 years. In the darkness of JFK Airport, New York, the roar of a helicopter overhead drowned out all other sounds. Tom Cruise pulled Emma behind a cargo container, while Angelina Jolie knelt, her hand gripping a handgun tightly, her eyes scanning Jean Dupont's henchmen advancing on the tarmac. Brad Pitt stood a few meters away, his gaze wavering between ally and enemy. A bullet grazed the container, leaving a scorch mark on the metal. Tom whispered, "We have to get on the plane." "Now," Angelina nodded, signaling for Emma to stay quiet. The girl was trembling, but her eyes began to flash with determination. As if realizing her parents were not ordinary people, Tom took a smoke grenade from his pocket and threw it hard toward the henchman. Thick smoke billowed out, creating an opportunity for them to rush toward the waiting private jet. But just as they reached the steps, Brad suddenly blocked their path. His gun pointed directly at Tom. "The device. Hand it over," he said, his voice cold. Tom smirked, unfazed. "You chose the wrong side." "Brad." In a flash, Angelina delivered a kick that knocked the gun from Brad's hand. He stumbled back, but couldn't react before Tom rushed in, pinning his arms and landing a hard punch to his face. Brad fell to the ground, unconscious. Emma cried out, "Dad, he's your friend!" Angelina grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her onto the plane. "Not anymore. Only enemies." The plane took off amidst the roar of gunfire from the henchmen below. Tom sat in the co-pilot's seat, checking the systems, while Angelina activated the jamming device to block Jean Dupont's radar. Emma sat huddled in the back, her eyes still filled with confusion. "You and Dad were spies, weren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. Angelina turned. "Here, gaze gentle." "Yes, sweetie. But right now, I just want to keep you and Liam safe." They headed for Madrid, where Meryl Streep, Angelina's mother, was waiting. But midway through the flight, a strange signal appeared on the plane's monitor. Tom frowned. "We're being tracked." He adjusted their course, lowering their altitude to avoid radar. But another helicopter suddenly appeared, firing a volley of bullets into the plane's wing. Angelina opened the luggage compartment and pulled out a grenade launcher. Aiming straight at the enemy chopper, a precise shot sent the helicopter bursting into flames and crashing into the Atlantic Ocean. The plane made an emergency landing at a small airfield on the outskirts of Madrid. The family quickly disembarked, jumping into an old truck that Meryl had prepared. Emma looked at her mother and asked, "Is Grandma a spy too?" Angelina sighed. "Your grandmother and I never got along. But she's the only one we can trust right now," Tom added, "and she knows about the key." On the way to Meryl's fox hunting estate in Madrid, they stopped at a deserted gas station to refuel. Tom checked the vehicle, while Angelina was teaching Emma how to use a small dagger, just for self-defense. She said, her eyes serious. But suddenly, a group of Jean Dupont's men appeared, surrounding the gas station. They moved quickly, heavy weapons at the ready. Tom immediately took a lighter from his pocket, lit the gas nozzle, and created a wall of fire to block the enemies. Angelina grabbed a broom from the convenience store, wrapped duct tape around the handle, and turned it into a weapon. She spun around, taking down 2 henchmen in an instant, her movements as swift as a professional assassin's. Emma stood frozen, unable to believe her eyes. "Mom, how did you do that?" Angelina gave a faint smile. "Practice, sweetie." Tom jumped onto the roof of the car, taking down one man from a distance. Then threw a flashbang at the remaining group. The explosion made them stagger, giving the family a chance to jump into the truck and speed away. But a black SUV stayed in close pursuit. Angelina opened the back door and fired repeatedly, blowing out the enemy's tires. The SUV flipped over, but one henchman managed to fire a shot, shattering the truck's window. Emma screamed, covering her head. Tom reassured his daughter. "Are you okay?" Emma nodded. But her expression had changed. It wasn't just fear, but also curiosity about her parents. "You're like superheroes," she mumbled. Angelina smiled slightly, but her heart was heavy. They weren't superheroes, just people trying to protect their family from a storm from the past. As the truck entered the suburbs of Madrid, the lights of Merrill's estate glimmered in the distance. But Tom noticed a strange signal on his phone. A tracking device had been activated. Someone from Jean Dupont's team had planted it on the truck. "They know we're here," he said, his voice low. Angelina tightened her grip. "Then we'd better be ready for a fight." Meryl Streep's fox-hunting estate lay quietly on the outskirts of Madrid, hidden behind rows of olive trees and ancient stone walls. Moonlight shone on the heavy iron gate, where Tom Cruise punched a code into the keypad. The gate creaked and slowly swung open, revealing the driveway leading to the large house. Angelina Jolie held Emma's hunt. Her eyes were wary, as if every shadow could hide an enemy. Tom checked the tracker on the truck, confirming the signal had been disabled, but they both knew the safety here was only temporary. Inside the villa, the air was warm yet cold. Antique paintings hung on the walls, and a flickering chandelier reflected off the polished wooden floors. Meryl Streep appeared on the staircase, her silver hair tied back neatly, her eyes as sharp as a hawk's. In her hands was a hunting rifle, its barrel still smoking from a shot at a large bird in the yard. "Angelina, you're late," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Emma stared wide-eyed at her grandmother, surprised by her stylish appearance and powerful presence. Angelina stepped forward, her voice tense. "Mother, we need a safe place. Jean Dupont is hunting us." Meryl frowned, setting the rifle down on a table. "I know about Jean. He doesn't just want the device. He wants revenge." She glanced at Tom, her gaze seeming to pierce right through him. "Where is the key?" Tom sighed, pulling a small device from his pocket, looking like a USB drive but with complex encryption. "It's here, but we need to open it before Jean finds us." Emma stood quietly, trying to understand what was happening. "Grandma was a spy too?" she asked, her voice curious. Meryl smiled faintly. "A long time ago, I was the best in the CIA." "Darling." Angelina frowned, memories of arguments with her mother flooding back. "You never told me anything," she said, her voice tinged with resentment. Meryl looked at her daughter, her gaze softening. "I wanted to protect you, but perhaps I was wrong." The conversation was cut short by an explosion from the gate. Tom rushed to the window, seeing the headlights of 3 black SUVs beaming directly at the villa. Jean Dupont's henchmen had arrived, faster than expected. "They've found us," he said, drawing his gun. Angelina pushed Emma behind the sofa, signaling for her to stay quiet. Meryl grabbed a shotgun, as calm as a seasoned warrior. "They want in. Let's see them try." The battle erupted right in the villa's courtyard. Tom and Angelina moved like a perfect machine. He darted out a side door, taking down 2 henchmen before they could even enter the house. Angelina used a dagger to cut the power cord for the exterior lights. Plunging the enemy into darkness, Meryl stood on the balcony, firing precise shotgun blasts, taking down 3 men from a distance. Emma, witnessing this for the first time, whispered, "Grandma is so cool." But the enemy numbers were overwhelming. A group of henchmen broke through the main door, storming the living room. Tom rolled to dodge a volley of bullets, kicked one man in the knee, then used the man's own gun to fire back. Angelina leaped over a table, using a wooden chair as a shield, smashing it over another man's head. From the upper floor, Merrill threw a stun grenade, creating an opportunity for all three to retreat into the back hallway. In the narrow hallway, Tom discovered a secret door leading to a cellar. "Mom, is the key here?" he asked Merrill. She nodded, leading the group down to a concrete cellar where an old safe was hidden behind a false wall. Tom entered the code, opened the safe, and took out a small metal box. Inside was the encryption key, the final piece to activate the device Jean coveted. "This is what he wants," Tom said, "but we're not going to let him have it." Heavy footsteps echoed from the cellar stairs. Jean had sent his most elite team, armed with heavy weapons. Angelina checked her magazine, preparing for the next fight. But Merrill suddenly stopped, her eyes sharp. "I recognize their commander's voice. It's Morgan Freeman." Tom was stunned. "That's impossible. He's one of us." Merrill shook her head. 15 years ago, Morgan sold information to Jean. He's the traitor. Before they could form a plan, a grenade rolled down the stairs. Tom quickly shoved Emma and Angelina behind a wall, while Merrill used a steel plate as a shield. The explosion rocked the cellar, filling it with dust. In the darkness, Angelina whispered to Tom, "We have to get Emma out. Then we deal with Morgan." Tom nodded, his hand tightening around the key. The journey to Madrid had uncovered a new secret, and now they had to fight not just for survival, but to protect their family. The thick dust slowly settled in the dark cellar of the villa. Tom Cruise held Emma tightly, shielding her from the debris of the grenade explosion. Angelina Jolie knelt beside Meryl Streep, checking if she was injured. Meryl, though her grey hair was a mess, maintained a terrifying calm, her hand gripping a shotgun. "They won't stop," she said, her voice low like a forecast for a coming storm. Tom looked at the encryption key in his hand, his gaze resolute. "We have to get Emma out before Morgan Freeman and Jean Dupont get in here." Hurried footsteps echoed from the staircase. Angelina gave a signal, and the group moved quickly through a secret corridor that Merrill led them to. The corridor opened into an underground garage, where an armored SUV was waiting. But before they could get in, the headlights of two black SUVs flashed on, followed by the continuous crackle of rifle fire. Tom pushed Emma down behind a metal crate, while Angelina and Merrill returned fire with precision. Tom rolled, grabbed an iron bar from the garage floor, and used it as a melee weapon. He slammed it hard into a henchman's head, then snatched his gun and shot down two others who were advancing. Angelina leaped onto the hood of the car, delivering a spinning kick that took down a massive goon. Merrill, from a concealed corner, fired a shotgun blast that shattered the windshield of an SUV, forcing the enemy to fall back. Emma, though terrified, began to realize that her parents and grandmother were not just her protectors, but true warriors. But the battle wasn't over. A loud explosion boomed as the garage door was blown open. Morgan Freeman walked in, his grey suit still immaculate, but his eyes were cold. Behind him was Jean Dupont's elite team, equipped with state-of-the-art weapons. "Tom, Angelina, give me the key," Morgan said, his voice calm yet filled with menace. "You can't run forever." Tom clutched the key, his eyes sharp. "You betrayed us." Morgan, why? Merrill interjected, her voice sharp. He was fired by the CIA after the Paris incident. Jean bought him. Morgan smirked, not denying it. "You made me lose everything. Now it's my turn to take it all back." Before Tom could respond, Morgan signaled, and a henchman grabbed Emma, pulling her from her hiding spot. Angelina screamed and lunged forward, but was blocked by 3 other men. Tom acted in a flash. Throwing a smoke grenade that created a thick fog, he dashed through the smoke, locked the arm of the man holding Emma, and punched him hard in the face. Angelina coordinated, using a dagger to cut the ropes on Emma's hands and pulling her toward the vehicle. Merrill laid down continuous fire, providing a shield for the group to retreat. They jumped into the armored vehicle. Tom slammed on the gas and plowed straight through the garage door, crashing into an enemy SUV and causing a massive explosion. The vehicle shot out onto a suburban road in Madrid. But Morgan and Jean's men didn't give up. 2 high-performance motorcycles closed in, firing relentlessly. Angelina opened the back door and fired back, causing one motorcycle to lose control and crash into the roadside. Merrill pulled a small explosive device from her bag and threw it toward the remaining bike. The explosion sent it tumbling, but a helicopter appeared in the sky, its searchlight beaming straight down on them. Tom weaved through narrow streets, trying to shake the helicopter. "We have to get to the Prado Museum," he said, his voice tense. "This key needs to be activated there." Angelina frowned. "The museum?" Why? Tom glanced at her, a complex look in his eyes. "I installed a backup system in there 15 years ago. Only there can we disable Jean's device." Emma overheard and chimed in. "What are Mom and Dad going to do with that key?" Angelina turned back, stroking her daughter's hair. "It can control the global network. Sweetie, if it falls into Jean Dupont's hands, the entire world will be in danger." Merrill added, "And Morgan knows that he wants to sell it to the Russians." Tom nodded, floored the accelerator, and sent the vehicle plowing through a Madrid night market, sending stalls flying. The screams of civilians mixed with the roar of the engine. As they approached the Prado Museum, a new tracking signal appeared on Tom's phone. "They planted a tracker on Emma," he said, his voice urgent. Angelina checked her daughter's jacket and found a small chip hidden in the seam. She broke it and threw it out. But it was too late. The helicopter's searchlight reappeared, along with a new group of henchmen blocking the road ahead. Tom stopped the vehicle, his gaze firm. "We have to get into the museum, at any cost." Tom Cruise stopped the armored vehicle a few meters from the main gate, his eyes scanning the deserted street. Angelina Jolie sat beside him, gripping a pistol, checking the magazine one last time. Emma, in the back seat, clutched her backpack, her eyes a mixture of fear and determination. Meryl Streep opened the car door, her shotgun resting on her shoulder, her voice low. "We have 5 minutes before Jean Dupont's men surround this place." Tom nodded, leading the group through a side entrance of the museum, where he had disabled the security system with a jamming device. Inside, the vast hallway echoed with their footsteps. Paintings by Goya and Velázquez flew by in the dim light. Angelina whispered, "Where does the key activate?" Tom pointed toward a storage room in the basement. "The backup server? I installed it 15 years ago, just in case of an emergency." They moved silently through the corridors, but the sound of the helicopter outside grew steadily closer. Meryl stopped, pressing her ear against a wall to listen. "They're inside," she said, her voice cold. Tom signaled for Emma to hide behind a large statue, while he and Angelina readied their weapons. A group of Jean Dupont's henchmen appeared at the end of the hall, rifles raised. Without hesitation, Angelina threw a smoke grenade, creating a thick screen of fog. Tom dove into the smoke, his movements as swift as an assassin, grabbing one man and smashing his head against the wall. Angelina coordinated, slitting another's throat with a dagger in a clean, silent motion. Meryl fired from a distance, taking down 2 men who were trying to advance. From her hiding spot, Emma watched her parents and grandmother fight. Her eyes filled with awe. "Am I really their child?" she mumbled. They reached the basement, where a steel door sealed the storage room. Tom entered the code from the key, but the screen displayed an error. "The system's been tampered with by Morgan Freeman," he muttered, quickly plugging a decryption device into the lock. Meanwhile, the sound of rushing footsteps echoed from the stairs. Angelina turned and fired repeatedly, holding back the group of henchmen charging down. Suddenly, red lights flashed throughout the museum. A voice boomed over the speakers. "Killer duo. You can't escape." It was Morgan Freeman, his voice cold and echoing. He had activated the device Tom and Angelina had once stolen, paralyzing Madrid's power grid for a few seconds before restoring it. Streetlights outside flickered, sending traffic into chaos. Mapanitzt. "What are they doing to the city?" Merrill calmly replied. "They're showing off their power. That device can control everything from the power grid to telecommunication networks." Tom finally got the steel door open, revealing an old server blinking with green lights. He inserted the key and began the deactivation process. But the screen displayed a warning: remote activation by Jean Dupont. Tom frowned. "He's connected the device to the system in Madrid. If we don't stop it, all of Europe will collapse." Before they could act, another group of henchmen broke through the basement door. Angelina leaped onto a table, using a power cable as a weapon, wrapping it around one man's neck and pulling tight, taking him down. Merrill fired continuously, providing cover for Tom to keep entering the codes. Emma, despite her fear, picked up a metal rod from the floor and slammed it into the leg of a henchman attacking her mother. Angelina smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "Good job, sweetie." But the situation was growing more desperate. Morgan Freeman appeared at the doorway, a pistol in his hand, his eyes cold. "Tom, give me the key, or your entire family will die." Tom didn't answer, continuing to type, while Angelina lunged forward, kicking Morgan's hand and knocking the gun to the floor. But Morgan reacted quickly, punching back and shoving her against a wall. Merrill jumped in, hitting Morgan's shoulder with the butt of her shotgun. But he remained standing. Tom completed the deactivation, and the server screen displayed a message: "Device disconnected." But their brief joy was cut short when a henchman suddenly grabbed Emma, dragging her out of the room. Angelina screamed and ran after them, but was stopped by a spray of bullets. Tom vaulted over a table, shooting down two men. But Emma had already been forced into a van outside the museum. Morgan smirked. "Jean is waiting at the Manzanares River. You want to save the girl, go there." Tom and Angelina exchanged a look that needed no words. They jumped into the armored vehicle, with Merrill in the back seat, shotgun at the ready. The vehicle tore out of the museum, heading for the Manzanares River, where Jean Dupont was waiting with his final plan. Emma was in the enemy's hands, and time was running out. The Manzanares River glittered under the Madrid night lights, but the air along the riverside road was thick with the smell of danger. Tom Cruise floored the gas pedal, sending the armored vehicle speeding through narrow streets, its tires screeching on the pavement. Angelina Jolie sat beside him, gripping her pistol, her eyes glued to the GPS locator on Emma's bracelet. Meryl Streep, in the back, checked her shotgun, her eyes as sharp as a warrior who had never left the battlefield. "We have to get there before Jean Dupont gets Emma on that yacht," she said in a low voice. The locator showed that Emma was at a small pier near the Toledo Bridge. Tom accelerated, weaving through traffic and smashing through a wooden barrier blocking the road. Angelina opened the window and fired a shot into the tire of a black SUV that was tailing them. The enemy vehicle flipped over, blocking the henchmen behind them. But a helicopter reappeared in the sky, its searchlight beaming down, accompanied by the roar of a machine gun. Tom yelled, "Get down!" The group ducked as bullets ripped through the vehicle's roof. They screeched to a halt at the pier, where a luxury yacht was docked. The light from the yacht reflected on the water, revealing the figure of Jean Dupont standing on the deck. Holding a remote control device, beside him was Emma, tied up, her eyes red but trying to remain strong. Morgan Freeman stood behind them, his gaze cold. "Qu'il a tout." "You're right on time," Jean said over a loudspeaker, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Bring me the key, or the girl never leaves this boat." Angelina clenched her fists, her eyes blazing. He wouldn't dare do anything to Emma. She whispered to Tom, "He needs us alive to get the key." Tom nodded, took the encrypted key from his pocket, and held it up. "Let the girl go first, Jean." But Jean laughed loudly. Pressing a button on the device, an explosion echoed in the distance, and Madrid's streetlights flickered again, signaling he had activated a part of the device, crippling the traffic network. Merrill whispered, "He's showing off his power. We have to move now." Tom gave a signal, and the team split up. Angelina slipped down to the dock, using the darkness as cover, approaching the yacht. Merrill climbed a nearby crane. Aiming her sniper rifle at the henchman on deck, Tom took her the tour, jumped onto a small motorboat, started the engine, and sped out onto the river. Creating a diversion, Jean realized the plan and ordered his men to fire at Tom. Bullets tore through the water, but Tom weaved and swerved, using the boat as bait. Meanwhile, Angelina climbed onto the yacht from the rear, her movements as swift as a hunting panther. She took down a henchman with a strike to the neck and snatched his gun. Merrill fired from the crane, taking down 2 more, creating an opening for Angelina to get to Emma. But Morgan Freeman suddenly appeared, blocking Angelina's path. "Haven't you learned anything? Angelina, the CIA abandoned you." He drew his gun, but Angelina was faster, kicking Morgan's hand and sending the weapon clattering to the floor. They engaged in hand-to-hand combat, each punch and block as precise as a choreographed fight scene. Angelina finally got Morgan in a chokehold, slamming his head against the railing, causing him to collapse. On deck, Jean realized the situation was turning against him and dragged Emma toward the bow. Tom leaped from the motorboat onto the yacht and charged forward, but Jean aimed his gun at Emma. "One more step, and the girl dies," he roared. Tom stopped, his eyes terrifyingly calm. He held up the key. "Fine, Jean, but you're not getting this." Merrill, from the crane, fired a shot that startled Jean, making him let go of Emma. Angelina immediately pulled her daughter behind her and cut the ropes. But Jean activated the device again, opening the floodgates of the Manzanares River. The water began to rise, threatening to submerge the area. Tom lunged forward, kicking Jean's hand and knocking the control device to the ground. He picked up a knife, intending to stab Tom, but Angelina threw a cable, wrapping it around Jean's legs and pulling him down. In the chaos, Emma unexpectedly picked up the control device, trying to press the button to close the floodgates. But she panicked, smashing the button and accidentally jamming the system. The river water rose higher, and the yacht began to rock violently. Tom yelled, "Get off the boat!" Now Angelina pushed Emma into a life jacket, preparing to jump into the water. But Jean got up, his eyes wild, determined to get the key back. The final battle was about to begin, and time was running out. The yacht rocked violently on the Manzanares River in Madrid as the floodwaters rose, threatening to submerge everything. Tom Cruise stood opposite Jean Dupont on the deck, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Angelina Jolie held Emma tight, putting a life jacket on her daughter while assessing the situation. Meryl Streep stood behind them, her sniper rifle still ready, her eyes never leaving Jean. The encrypted key rested in Tom's hand, glittering under the yacht's lights. The one thing Jean had coveted for 15 years. Jean sneered, his hand gripping a dagger, the steel glinting in the dark. "Give me the key, Tom, or your whole family will go down with this ship." He pressed a button on his wrist, activating a countdown timer on a small screen attached to the railing. The number 12 appeared and began to count down. 12, 11, 10, 12 seconds. Gemini, if you don't hand over the key, the flood will swallow Madrid. Jean roared, his voice full of triumph. Tom stood motionless, calmly observing Jean. With each passing second, he seemed to read his opponent's every move, the way Jean tightened his grip on the knife, his ragged breathing, his wavering eyes. 9, 8. Angelina whispered to Emma, "Stay calm. Your father knows what he's doing." Meryl took aim, but Tom signaled for her to lower her weapon. He wanted to handle this himself. 7, 6. Jean lost his patience and lunged, thrusting the knife straight at Tom's chest. But Tom dodged, quick as a flash, grabbing Jean's wrist and twisting it. The knife clattered to the floor. 5, 4. Tom landed a punch on Jean's face, sending him stumbling. 3, 2. Jean tried to get up, but Tom leaped and kicked him hard in the chest, knocking him flat. 1. Tom snatched the countdown device and hit the cancel button just before 0 appeared. The screen went blank, and the floodgates stopped operating. Jean roared and tried to stand, but Angelina was there, wrapping the cable tightly around his legs and pulling him down again. Tom picked up the key and put it in his pocket, his expression cold. "Your game is over, Jean." But before they could tie him up, an explosion erupted from the stern. A remaining henchman had detonated a grenade, setting the deck on fire. Meryl screamed, "Get out of here!" Now, Angelina pushed Emma into the water, the life jacket keeping her afloat on the river. Tom jumped in after her, pulling Emma toward a nearby motorboat. Meryl fired one last shot, taking down the henchman, then jumped in as well. Angelina stayed behind to face Jean one last time. He laughed maniacally and tried to charge, but she kicked him in the chest, sending him into the flames. The yacht shuddered and began to sink. Angelina dove into the river, swimming quickly to Tom's boat. Once they were safely on the boat, the yacht exploded behind them, the brilliant flames reflecting on the water's surface. Emma hugged her mother tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I thought we were going to die." Angelina stroked her daughter's hair, her voice gentle. "You promised I'd protect you, didn't I?" Tom looked at Meryl and nodded his thanks. "You're still a crack shot," he said. Meryl smirked. "Don't test me, Tom." They handed the key and the device to a team of CIA agents waiting on the riverbank, led by an old colleague, Denzel Washington, who had no connection to Morgan Freeman. Denzel nodded. "You did well. Morgan will be dealt with." It turned out Morgan had been arrested right after the fight at the museum. Thanks to a signal Meryl had sent, Jean Dupont was no longer a threat, and the dangerous device had been neutralized. As dawn broke over Madrid, Angelina and Meryl stood together, watching the Manzanares River flow peacefully. "I'm sorry for not being there for you," Meryl said, her voice low. Angelina took her mother's hand, her eyes welling up. "I'm sorry too, Mom. We have each other now." Emma and Liam. Their son, whom they had just picked up from school, ran over and hugged their parents tightly. Tom smiled, feeling a sense of relief for the first time in days. Their family returned to New York, but they no longer lived in anonymity. Tom and Angelina decided to cooperate with the CIA again, but on one condition: they would be consultants, not field agents. Emma and Liam began to see their parents as heroes, though they remained curious about the untold stories. Meryl returned to Madrid, but promised to visit her grandchildren often. The past was closed, opening a new chapter for Gemini.